Welcome everybody to the Wake Up Call channel. It's very important that we keep an eye on a lot of these things that we look at and we say to ourselves, wow, that's really, really, really good. That's a good thing. That makes me want to live in that state. That's the mindset we need to have because none of these people can be trusted. And the fact that some of these conservative states are standing up, speaking out against chemtrails, speaking out now in Florida against what they're calling quote unquote global elite lab grown meat. These are things that sound great. That's the problem. It sounds too good to be true. And if something sounds too good to be true, I'd say 10 times out of 10, it probably isn't, you know? It's like opening your mailbox and seeing a check that says $1 million with your name on it. There's a split second you think to yourself, a check with $1 million, and you say, oh, right, these are those fake checks that they always send because they want you to do something with the check. And of course, it's not a real check at all, but some people fall for it. Some people take those fake checks to the bank only to have the bank teller have to inform them that 15 minutes that they were feeling excited about being rich is not real at all. In fact, it was completely a setup for something else. And that's what this feels a lot like. If you haven't seen, I'll show you the clip now of what Ron DeSantis once again is doing in Florida. Keep in mind all the things we're seeing in Florida that sound wonderful, right? They claim there's no mandates in Florida. Florida's not letting a lot of this curriculum into the school systems, right? Florida is telling you that they are not going to allow lab-grown meat. There's many things, right? They tell you the Satanic Temple and the Satanists aren't going to be welcome there. They're not going to be allowed into the schools. Florida, Florida, Florida. That's what we call a honeypot. And notice the logo that he's speaking in front. It's gotten so bad, the propaganda, that people somehow can't see it, but they're even using Save Our Beef, using the World Economic Forum's logo. These guys know that an awakening was happening and people were waking up to the globalists. So the conservatives have jumped on board as a herding mechanism. And again, it's going to lead to two separate countries in America. Both are going to be communists. It's just going to have a different look to it. Different look. It might be more of a fascist conservative side and a quote unquote socialist communist Democrat side. But look at DeSantis yet again, tickling the ears of everybody out there. Don't fall for it.
You will not be seeing any lab-grown meat on grills in Florida. Governor DeSantis made that official today, signing a bill that bans the manufacture and sale of cultivated meats. Fox 13's Aaron Mesmer has more on this new law.
This mouth-watering sizzle and sear is more science to stomach than farm to table, and that's why it won't be happening in Florida.
Take your fake lab-grown meat elsewhere. We're not doing that in the state of Florida.
That's the message behind the bill Governor DeSantis signed Wednesday. It takes aim at meat grown by scientists in a lab, making it a crime to manufacture or sell cultivated meat in Florida.
What they want to say is this is the same as raising cattle and doing it naturally, then there's no reason that you have this industry. So it is designed to represent a threat to agriculture as we know it.
And supporters say the new law offers protections to Florida's cattle industry.
It's never been more important than today to protect Florida's farmers and ranchers, and that's what this legislation does.
But opponents say concerns about lab-grown meat are overblown. Federal regulators have already said some products are safe and ready to eat after receiving FDA approval last year, a point made by cultivated meat industry members during the legislative session.
Cultivated meat is safe, period. We make our chicken with a safe process in a safe environment, and USDA inspectors are on site during operations at all times, from beginning to end.
Others have argued this law threatens the free market and is too short-sighted.
By potentially criminalizing cultivated meat, poultry, and seafood, this bill stifles innovation, limits consumer choice and free market principles, and undermines economic growth.
That was Aaron Mesmer reporting for us. This law does not ban the research of cultivated meat, which can continue at universities in Florida. In fact, it's already taking place.
So while this sounds like a great idea and a good thing, overall, it shouldn't even be a concept. And really, it could just be rejected as a concept if people say and farmers say, we're not killing our cattle. We're not going to stop eating meat. And in a lot of ways, a lot of people have. It's not like many people, even these libs out there who pretend to be on board with all this stuff and call us conspiracy nuts, they're not giving up meat because they're telling them to give up meat. They're not eating bugs because they're being told to. Now, there are some of these extremists who are, in fact, eating bugs themselves because they've been so brainwashed from celebrities. I've covered that before. A lot of the celebrities are openly posting that they're eating bugs on their social media. And like monkey see, monkey do goes, these people are actually eating bugs themselves. But they're a different breed of people, almost like they have the minds of a lot of the insects that they're ingesting. So DeSantis, as you saw, is banning lab-grown meat, saying he will save our beef from the global elite. Florida's fighting back against the global elite's plan to force the world to eat meat grown in a petri dish or bugs, DeSantis said in a statement. The first in the nation law prohibits anyone from selling or distributing lab-grown meat in Florida. Similar efforts are underway in Alabama, Arizona, and Tennessee, and that's important to note because we're starting to see which states are going to align as conservative states and which ones are going to align as Democratic states. Tennessee is the other one that's starting to stick out to me. We obviously know Texas is going to be conservative. We obviously now know Florida. Tennessee is really starting to garner support as a conservative state, especially with the chemtrail laws that they're putting in place. They're trying to tell us to go there because we're all sick of seeing haze skies every day from the chemtrailing that's going on. People who are awake to chemtrails, it sounds like the best thing possible. Wow, a state's going to ban chemtrailing? Again, it sounds too good to be true. What, they're all of a sudden going to have control over the military and what the military and the federal government are doing to everybody and the global government who really is control of all this? Of course not. Of course not. None of these people are standing up for any of us. And of course, if states are starting to do these types of things, they're trying to get you to move to these states. We can see the people in Congress are doing nothing to protect our rights. They're doing absolutely nothing in Congress except putting on a spectacle every single day. All we see are these guys screaming at each other in Congress, saying the things that we're all thinking, I guess, on the back end of that they're actually speaking for us, but they're not. They're running in circles, killing off time and getting more laws passed like the one I just covered, which is going to take away our right to free speech. So again, similar efforts are underway in Alabama, Arizona, and Tennessee. Lab-grown or cultivated meat was first cleared for consumption in the U.S. in 2022. The process of making cultivated meat involves extracting cells from an animal, which are then fed with nutrients such as protein, sugars, and fats. The end product is genetically indistinguishable from traditionally produced meat. Studies have suggested that eating cultivated meat can cut carbon emissions and water usage and free up land for nature compared to eating traditionally produced meat. The World Economic Forum, an international non-governmental organization in Switzerland, has for years touted lab-grown meat as an efficient and environmentally friendly way to produce food and feed a rapidly growing global population. It has also promoted insect farming as a credible and alternative protein source. I love when we hear stuff like this about being able to grow food, and they say, well, we'll be able to feed the homeless, the poor, people in these countries that aren't able to eat. These people have billions of dollars. They fly around in private jets. If they wanted to save people who don't have food, who can't afford food, they could farm for food. They could make farms farm food for these people because they have the ability to make it rain. So they have the ability to stop starvation, but the same people who say they want to end starvation, etc. That's all that these people out there hear who support these people. That's all they hear. Like, yeah, I want to do that too. They don't realize at the same time, the same people are talking about how we need a mass extinction, right? How we need the sixth mass extinction, something I've covered many times, or just how we need flat out depopulation because there's too many people. So they say that on one hand, and then on the other hand, they say they want to stop people from dying of starvation. But what they're really doing is they're killing crops. They're destroying water supply all over the earth, and they're killing crops. And they have the ability to do the opposite. They have the ability to actually use tax money to take care of this problem. And this should be the number one problem that all people are concerned with. But this is where people get really dumb. They take food for granted. They never think about this. All they think about is, what do I want to eat? Right? That's it. What do I want for dinner? Do I want pizza? Do I want Chick-fil-A? I don't know. What do I want? Let me think about it. Instead of just being grateful that they have food. But sooner than later, they're not going to be thinking like that anymore. And the government's deliberately done that to make people take food for granted. Because the main concern of people, I would say even like 75 years ago, was how are they going to have food? Were they going to have enough food on the table? Were they going to be able to provide to have food for their children, et cetera, et cetera? It was always the focus. How do I feed my kids, right? Water and food. Not so much anymore. The focus is how can we get people to love me and accept the things that I like? How can we cancel so-and-so? How can we get people to realize that men can have kids, out of their own penis? Apparently, I mean, that's what they believe, right? I mean, that's the stuff they care about, right? So when all these guys get together and they tell you that, well, we've come up with lab-grown meat to help the problem with starvation. No. Why don't you take all the money you have and why don't you plant, all you got to do is plant a seed. It's not that expensive, right? Get some farming equipment, right? The billions of dollars they spend on absolute nonsense. But that's not what it's really about. It's about you and me. People who currently can take care of themselves and eat. They don't want you to be able to eat the food that you want because it's nutritional, right? It's not good for them if we're healthy and we're doing well. It's not good for them if we're not eating what they want us to ultimately eat. So lobbyists for edible insects have launched a campaign asking the U.S. Food and Drug Administration to add mealworms, crickets protein powder, and other insect products to the agency's database of safe ingredients. And they've been doing this. These unconventional food sources have become fodder for the U.S. culture wars. Republicans made headlines years ago after insinuating that the government was monitoring whether Americans were eating fake meat grown in a petri dish. At an event on Wednesday announcing the new law, DeSantis said he was fighting against the ideology that ultimately wants to eliminate meat production in the U.S. and around the globe. In the state of Florida, we put down the marker very clearly. We stand with agriculture. We stand with the cattle ranchers. So this will be a luring tactic. And again, if you're out there and you're like, what? You're not getting what I'm talking about here. Okay, this is just basic guerrilla warfare mindset, right? If somebody wants to wipe out a certain group of people, let's say Christians, right? Because let's just say for the most part, the majority of conservatives, not all of them, but the majority of them are Christians. You'll find very few Christians are Democrats, though Christians who are Democrats are obviously likely lukewarm. Now, I'm not going to pass judgment, but if they're accepting and open to all the stuff that the Democrats openly want everyone to do, then they're probably lukewarm or they're just really, really slow or clueless, and they probably won't serve much of a purpose if the entire Christian population is wiped off. You can't count on those people to actually preach God's word. So if these people are so against one specific group, which is Christians, if they can get them all to sit in one specific spot, like states that are red, like Tennessee and Texas and Florida, right? Then all of a sudden when that happens, when everyone's thrilled and they have a year of, we're in Florida, we're loving life again, we have free speech again, we have this again, we're eating meat, we don't have these crazy people around us, which is what it's heading towards. Then all of a sudden, oh, wait a minute, Trump and Putin are arguing with each other. Trump and China are arguing with each other. Oh, right. Well, maybe we should pass a digital ID or some type of digital ID. We'll just give it a new name. And instead of a smart city, we'll call it a freedom city. And everyone will be like, yeah, right? And we'll have a digital ID because it's needed to keep illegals out. People will go on board, right? So all the same ideologies and principles will be passed in the conservative states. They'll just be convinced of it because it'll have a different name. And they'll just say it's not the same thing. And of course, Trump or whoever will tell them, or DeSantis probably, will tell them why it's perfect for them, right? Then after that, of course, we start getting conflict with other countries. We go into World War III, and we're sitting ducks for an attack and a direct energy weapon attacks as well. It's not a surprise or a secret, I should say, with the weather that goes on in Texas and Florida over the last decade, that they're drilling those specific places with all sorts of weaponized weather and direct energy weapons. That's because they're luring conservatives to those states, and then they're hitting them with that. So that's what my concern is. Obviously, my concern about lab-grown meat is this. You're not going to put it in the mouth of me, probably not the mouth of the people listening to my channel, right? But what they're trying to do is remove it from shelves. So what people need to do is just say no. That's all. When we see farmers in other countries getting shut down when the government shows up, well, the reason it's happening in those countries is because the farmers are unarmed. The farmers can't protect their land. They can't protect their crops. So the government is able to do that to them. That's what they want to do so much so in this country, but they know that they can't. That's why they need to divide us up, okay? They need to divide us up because they know we're not going to give up our right to bear arms. They know that we're not going to give up our meat or anything else that we like. We're not going to give up wood-burning stoves because of carbon emission. So they're going to do this in two different ways, and they're going to continue to do things like this out in the open because look at the response to these things, right? None of these conservatives are going, I don't know. That does seem a little, right? Like we have our governor who, he can't even be elected again. He's already at his maximum term here. What is he doing this for? Oh, he's doing it because he's so pro-Florida. And obviously they'll probably roll another conservative leader out in Florida after DeSantis, if we even get that far before the civil divorce. But people should be hearing this and saying, why are they like really trying to bait me? And they're making it seem like it's really too good to be true in Florida. They're making it seem like it's really too good to be true in Texas. They're not putting up with this stuff. Texas is speaking out against the union. They want to leave the union. They have no interest in the federal government. I love that. That's what everyone says. That's the response. Instead of going, I don't know, didn't the governor of Texas, isn't he at the World Economic Forum meetings on the website over there? Supports the World Economic Forum openly, will not denounce them publicly. Yeah, it's a little suspicious to me. DeSantis using the World Economic Forum out in the open, that's called baiting somebody, right? Might as well have a sign that says, free $1 million, come to Florida, right? I mean, that's what it is for conservatives. No chemtrails, no lab-grown meat, no World Economic Forum, right? No to this nonsense about, letting people into the libraries who are crossed. None of it, right? And that is the problem. The problem is it's too good to be true. And I can guarantee you that these people are not working for us. The proof is in the pudding. They do nothing in Congress, right? But DeSantis and what he's doing in that state, everyone out there loves it. And they should love it because this is the way that it should normally be. This is sanity. But again, too good to be true. You can't tell me that DeSantis, who is a Jesuit, who is in bed with Israel, you can't tell me that these specific states all of a sudden are growing a conscience and they care about us. Don't forget when the mandates occurred, a lot of these states like Florida at first were in on the mandates, right? Tennessee, they were in on it, right? And now they're starting to show you their colors, and their colors are a deception because they want you to move to these states. And people are like, I'm not going to go somewhere that they tell me to go. I get that mindset. I'm not going to move because there's lab-grown meat. And my states make, they have lab-grown meat, but Florida doesn't. Okay. Well, when they stop selling meat in your state, right? Just like, don't forget the stuff going on with the vehicles, right? Conservative states still have gas-powered vehicles. Well, liberal states like California are putting a ban on that in 2030, 2035, et cetera. There's a ban, so you won't be able to be in the state eventually if you have a gas-powered car. It'll start with you can't buy one, right? That'll be the first 2 years. They'll say, oh, yeah, but it hasn't made enough of a difference. Now we can't let people in with them, right? So if you were in a state, in 10 years, if you're in a state that bans gas-powered vehicles, you might move over that. If you're in a state that bans meat, right? If they say you can't have steak anymore, we're banning it in this state, but you can have it in that state, you might move to that state. And I can guarantee you, when they have their next plan, Disease X, when they tell you that it's mandated for you to have it, or you can't buy or sell or go to a store or have a job, you will be forced to move to a state that won't have those laws. And guess which states won't? The conservative states. Thus, you'll be in these states and you'll feel free. But it doesn't work that way with these people. They're all networking in secret societies. And what it obviously feels like is that they're making it too good to be true. And if it's too good to be true, unless you're a sucker, you should question it and you should wonder. And especially when it comes to politicians, because none of these guys can be trusted. And everybody should be thinking that way. We should be able to look at all of them. We should be able to, they should all be removed from Congress on both sides. Completely removed. There's no proof that they were even elected other than the television telling us, because we all know that they weren't. We should have handwritten ballots, and you shouldn't have to have X amount of money to get on the ballot. People don't even realize you have to have like 500,000 or closer to 1 million now just to have your name on the ballot in a state. So you would need a minimum of, let's say you had a $50 million, let's say you had $55 million in your bank account. Just to get on the ballot, you would need to use your entire life savings. Then you have a few million left to maybe get some TV ads out there, right? It's not real. This isn't what the country's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be, they're like, oh, there's lobbyists and there's this and that. Well, that's not what it's supposed to be, right? But none of these people there are elected in the first place. And that's why they're baiting you, because they're trapping you. That's what's ultimately coming out of this. I can guarantee it. I thank you for being here. Hope you're all doing well. God bless all of you as always and your families.